The Gobi Desert sand whipped against Dr. Alexandra, Lex Morgan's protective mask, as she ducked under the twisted hull of the Vraxian scout ship. 3 days after it crashed, the wreckage still radiated enough heat to distort the air above its metallic surface. Military personnel swarmed around the crash site like ants, cataloging debris and establishing a growing perimeter of temporary structures. Dr. Morgan. A voice crackled through her radio. The east sector's already been cleared. You need authorization to. Check your updated credentials, Lieutenant. Lex interrupted, not breaking stride. Section 7 just granted me full access. The lie rolled off her tongue easily. She'd learned long ago that confidence and a lab coat could get you past most military checkpoints. By the time they verified her credentials, she'd have what she came for. Her modified sensor array, disguised as standard radiation detection equipment, pulsed quietly at her hip. Unlike the military's basic scanners searching for weapons and propulsion systems, hers was calibrated to detect the unique quantum signatures she'd identified in the first fragments recovered from the crash. The device's quiet hum suddenly shifted to a high-pitched whine. Lex froze, her heart pounding. There, behind a fallen panel of the alien hull, barely visible in the shadows, a faint purple glow. She glanced over her shoulder. The nearest patrol was heading in the opposite direction. Moving quickly, she slipped into the shadow of the wreckage. The air grew noticeably cooler as she descended into what appeared to be a small chamber, untouched by the crash's destruction. The purple light emanated from a series of crystalline structures embedded in the walls. They pulsed with a gentle rhythm that reminded her of a heartbeat, but it was the device in the center of the chamber that made her breath catch. A chair-like structure surrounded by floating holographic symbols. Neural interface chamber, she whispered, recognizing the configuration from theoretical papers she'd published years ago. Her hands trembled as she approached. This was decades beyond anything humans had conceived, yet somehow familiar. A sudden surge of static electricity made her hair stand on end. The crystals pulsing accelerated, and the holographic symbols began to spin. Too late, she realized her proximity had activated something. The world exploded into purple light. Alien data flooded her consciousness. Mathematical equations, star charts, biological diagrams, weapon schematics. Her mind burned as it tried to process the torrent of information. She tried to scream but couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, through the chaos, a pattern emerged. The neural interface wasn't just dumping data, it was scanning her, analyzing her brain's response patterns. And in that moment of clarity, Lex understood something that chilled her to her core. The Vraxians' neural patterns were simpler than human ones. Their technology, designed for their own species' mental architecture, was struggling to interface with her more complex consciousness. The connection abruptly broke. Lex collapsed to her knees, gasping. Blood trickled from her nose, but her mind raced with implications. The aliens weren't more advanced because they were smarter. They were more advanced because they'd been uplifted by this same technology. Technology that their simpler brains could handle safely. What could humans do with it? The sound of approaching footsteps snapped her back to reality. She quickly wiped the blood from her face and pulled out her tablet, pretending to take readings. Dr. Morgan, the lieutenant from earlier, appeared at the chamber's entrance. This area isn't. Lieutenant, she cut him off, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Get me a secure line to Section 7. Now. She met his gaze with steely determination. We've been asking the wrong questions about our visitors. They're not here to invade Earth. Her hand unconsciously touched the neural interface chair. They're here to test us. And humanity, she decided, was about to pass that test in ways the Vraxians never imagined possible. Neural activity spiking. Dr. Hayes called out from his monitoring station. Subject's limbic system is going into overdrive. Lex barely heard him, lost in the kaleidoscope of alien data streaming through her consciousness. After 3 weeks of secret trials, she'd finally convinced Section 7 to let her attempt a controlled interface with the salvaged Vraxian technology. The neural interface chair had been relocated to a subterranean lab beneath the Nevada desert, stripped down and rebuilt with human safety protocols. Not that those protocols meant much when you were essentially hot-wiring your brain to alien tech. "Dr. Morgan, your cortisol levels are reaching critical," the medical officer warned. "We need to terminate." "No." Lex pushed through the burning sensation in her temples. "I'm seeing patterns. The Vraxian data isn't just information. It's alive, adaptive. It's trying to reorganize itself to match human neural architecture." The holographic displays surrounding her chair blazed with purple light, casting twisted shadows across the worried faces of her research team. She could feel the interface struggling to process her brainwave patterns, like trying to force high-definition data through dial-up internet. Then something clicked. "It's not about processing power," she gasped, as understanding flooded her mind. "It's about complexity. Human consciousness. Our ability to think abstractly, to imagine. It's overwhelming their systems. The Vraxians designed this for linear, logical thinking. But our minds..." She laughed despite the pain. "We're too messy. Too creative." Warning alarms blared as her neural activity surged again. But this time, Lex was ready. Instead of fighting the alien patterns, she let her mind wander, allowing random thoughts and memories to flow freely. The interface responded, its rigid structures bending and adapting to her chaotic human consciousness. "Impossible," Dr. Hayes whispered, staring at his readings. "She's pushing more data through the system than the original Vraxian specs suggested was possible. The interface is evolving." Lex opened her eyes, watching in wonder as the holographic displays began generating images from her thoughts. Not just data, but abstract concepts, emotions, dreams. "Get me General Richards," she ordered. "He needs to see this now." The lab door burst open. 2 military officers rushed in, faces grim. "Doctor, we've lost contact with the Kuiper Belt outpost," one reported. "Long-range sensors detect multiple objects entering the solar system at FTL speeds. We're out of time." "How long?" Lex demanded, even as she maintained her connection to the interface. 2 months, maybe less." She nodded, her decision made. "Prep the volunteer program. I've proven the concept. Now we need to scale up." She turned to Dr. Hayes. "The neural interfaces can work with human minds, but we need to approach it differently than the Vraxians. We're not looking for control, we're looking for synthesis." "Dr. Morgan," the medical officer interjected. "The risks." A scream cut through the lab. Everyone turned to see Private Cooper, one of the security detail, clutching his head. In their excitement over Lex's breakthrough, no one had noticed him approaching the second neural interface chair they'd been preparing for future tests. "Get him out," Lex shouted, but it was too late. The private's untrained mind, lacking any preparation, was overwhelmed by the alien technology. His eyes rolled back as neural feedback cascaded through his consciousness. When they finally managed to disconnect him, Cooper was alive but catatonic, his mind burned out by the raw alien data. General Richards arrived just in time to witness the aftermath. He took one look at Cooper being rushed to medical, then turned to Lex with cold fury. "The program's done. I'm shutting it down." Lex stood her ground, purple light still dancing in her eyes from the interface. "With all due respect, General, you can't. The Vraxians are coming, and they've given us the key to beating them, even if they didn't mean to." She gestured to the neural interface. "This isn't just a weapon. It's the next step in human evolution. We just have to be brave enough to take it." "Take a deep breath and focus on the target," Lex said softly, watching the holographic displays as Captain Riley attempted to interface with a modified F-35. After Private Cooper's incident, most volunteers had backed out. Finding soldiers willing to risk their minds had become nearly impossible. But time was running out. The Vraxian fleet had already passed Jupiter's orbit. "Neural connection at 30%, Dr. Hayes reported. Still within safe parameters." Riley's hands trembled on the simulator controls. "It's like trying to think through static. he muttered. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he attempted the basic maneuvers they'd practiced. Suddenly, an alarm blared in the distance. Riley jumped, his heart rate spiking. The neural interface readings exploded. "Shut it down," Hayes shouted, reaching for the emergency disconnect. "Wait." Lex's eyes were fixed on the readings. During Riley's moment of surprise, the neural connection had briefly spiked to 80%, far beyond what they'd achieved in controlled tests. "Captain, what were you feeling just then?" I was startled. Scared, I guess." He looked embarrassed. "Sorry, Doctor." "Don't be." Lex's mind raced. Hayes, show me the comparison between his logical processing and emotional response during the spike. The holographic display shifted, revealing two distinct patterns. There, the emotional response created pathways the logical mind couldn't access. The Vraxians, they're purely logical beings. They never conceived of using emotional states to enhance neural connectivity. She rushed to her station, pulling up data from previous failed attempts. Look at Cooper's readings before he burned out. The interface didn't overload his logic centers. His emotional reaction to the alien data created a feedback loop. We've been trying to suppress emotions during testing, but what if that's exactly wrong? Dr. Morgan, General Richard's voice cut through her excitement. He'd been observing from the back of the lab. We're not looking for scientific breakthroughs. We need weapons that work. This is a weapon, General. Lex pointed to the neural pattern displays. The most powerful one imaginable. The Vraxians designed this technology to interface with logical, orderly minds like theirs. But human consciousness, our messy, emotional, creative chaos, it's like trying to contain a nuclear reaction with a paper cup. She smiled. So let's stop containing it. 20 minutes later, they had recalibrated the interface. Riley sat back in the simulator. But this time, Lex had different instructions. Don't fight your emotions, Captain. Let them flow. Fear, excitement, anger, they're not weaknesses. They're fuel. Riley nodded, closing his eyes. The neural connection initialized, but instead of forcing structured thoughts, he let his mind roam. His breathing steadied as memories surfaced. The thrill of his first solo flight, the terror of a near crash, the raw joy of breaking the sound barrier. The displays blazed with unprecedented activity. Neural connection at 90%, Hayes announced, his voice filled with disbelief. No sign of rejection or feedback loops. In the simulator, Riley's hands moved with inhuman precision. The F-35's responses were instantaneous, not just following his commands but anticipating them. Man and machine moved as one, driven by pure instinct and emotion. "My God," Richards whispered, watching the performance metrics soar off the charts. "How is this possible?" "Because we're not just pilots anymore," Riley said, his voice distant, eyes still closed. "We're dreamers, and we're about to show the Vraxians what human dreams can do." Lex felt tears in her eyes as she watched. They'd done it. They'd found the key to unlocking the neural technology's true potential. But as she looked at Riley's peaceful expression, she saw something that both thrilled and terrified her. Subtle purple lights dancing beneath his closed eyelids. The interface wasn't just allowing humans to control machines. It was changing them, evolving them. And with the Vraxian fleet approaching, Lex had to decide. Would she tell anyone what was really happening to their volunteers? She looked at the latest deep space scans, showing the massive alien armada heading toward Earth. No, she decided. Some prices were worth paying for survival, even if that price was their humanity itself. Major James Rodriguez ignored the concerned murmurs as he strode into the testing chamber. After Captain Riley's success, the brass had fast-tracked Project Nexus, but something wasn't clicking with the other pilots. 3 weeks of tests, and none had managed to replicate Riley's neural connection levels. "Major," Lex called out from her station, "are you sure about this? Your psych evaluation showed unusually high emotional volatility." Rodriguez grinned as he settled into the neural interface chair. With respect, Doc, that's exactly why I'm here. The modified F-35 simulator hummed to life around him. Everyone else is trying to control their emotions. I want to ride them. Beginning neural sync, Dr. Hayes announced. Remember, Major, start with basic maneuvers. Rodriguez closed his eyes and dove straight into his memories. The rage when his wingman died over Damascus, the euphoria of his first barrel roll, the bone-deep fear during that storm over the Pacific. He didn't try to channel these emotions. He surrendered to them. The interface exploded with activity. Neural connection at 100%. Hayes shouted. That's impossible. He's exceeding Riley's numbers. But Rodriguez wasn't listening. In his mind, the simulator disappeared. He wasn't controlling an aircraft anymore. He was the aircraft. He could feel every current of air, every subtle shift in pressure. The F-35 sensors became new senses, expanding his consciousness in ways that felt terrifyingly natural. Running combat simulation, Lex announced, her voice tense. A squadron of Vraxian fighters materialized in his virtual airspace, their attack patterns based on data from their crashed scout ship. Rodriguez didn't think. He didn't plan. He flew. The F-35 moved in ways that defied physics, predicting and countering alien maneuvers before they began. His consciousness expanded through the neural web, feeling the subtle electromagnetic pulses of the enemy ships, tasting their engine signatures, dancing through their targeting locks like raindrops through sunlight. My God, General Richards breathed, watching the combat display. He's not just flying. He's composing. In 3 minutes, Rodriguez had destroyed every simulated Vraxian fighter. Not a single shot had come close to hitting him. How? Hayes demanded, reviewing the data. The neural load should have burned out his synapses. Because he's not fighting the interface, Lex realized, studying Rodriguez's brain patterns. Everyone else tried to impose human logic on alien tech. He's letting it impose alien tech on human instinct. She turned to Richards. General, we need to completely revise our training protocols. Stop teaching pilots to think like machines. Teach machines to feel like pilots. Rodriguez opened his eyes, then stumbled as he tried to stand. He blinked, disoriented. I could feel everything. Not just the plane, but the air itself. The electromagnetic fields. The quantum fluctuations. It was beautiful, Lex finished, recognizing the purple light flickering in his eyes. The same changes she'd seen in Riley. Major, how would you like to help us rewrite the book on aerial combat? Before he could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Hayes's face went pale as he read the incoming data. Multiple Vraxian signatures detected entering lunar orbit. The advance fleet. It's here early. Rodriguez straightened, the disorientation vanishing as combat instincts took over. How many pilots are interface capable? Just you and Riley, Lex answered. The others aren't ready. Then 2 will have to be enough. He headed for the door, then paused. Doc, those changes I felt in my mind during the interface, they're not temporary, are they? Lex met his gaze steadily. No, the neural technology is changing you, evolving you. We don't fully understand how yet. Rodriguez nodded, a fierce light in his eyes. Good, because I have a feeling humanity's going to need every advantage we can get. He smiled, and for a moment, Lex could have sworn his pupils shifted to match the purple glow of the interface. Let's show these aliens what happens when you give humans wings. The observation room fell silent as Captain Riley stepped through the door. In the 3 weeks since active neural interfacing began, his appearance had become unsettling. Purple light flickered beneath his skin like electric currents, and his eyes held a metallic sheen that reflected light in impossible ways. Another precognitive episode? Lex asked, trying to keep her voice steady. She'd grown used to Riley and Rodriguez showing up minutes before alarms actually sounded. Worse, Riley's voice carried an odd harmonic, as if multiple versions of him were speaking simultaneously. "We're starting to see through their eyes, Doc. The Vraxians. We can feel their network." Behind her, Dr. Hayes cursed softly as his instruments began registering unprecedented neural activity. His brain structure is changing again. The quantum entanglement patterns are expanding exponentially. Rodriguez finished, entering the room. Unlike Riley, he seemed to revel in his transformation. Purple energy danced across his skin like aurora borealis. "We're not just pilots anymore, Doc. We're becoming something else." General Richards burst in, face ashen. "We've got bigger problems. The Joint Chiefs want to shut down Project Nexus. They've seen the medical reports on the other test subjects." Lex's stomach churned. After Riley and Rodriguez's success, dozens of pilots had volunteered for the program, but their transformations had been less controlled. 3 were catatonic. 5 had developed seemingly random telekinetic abilities they couldn't control, and 1 had simply vanished, though the security cameras showed impossible geometries forming around him before he disappeared. "They don't understand," Riley said, his voice echoing strangely. "The interface isn't just changing us. It's awakening something that was always there. Human consciousness was never meant to be so limited." Suddenly, both Riley and Rodriguez stiffened, their eyes blazing with purple fire. "They're coming," they said in perfect unison. "The main fleet, they've detected the changes in us. We're no longer just a harvest target. We're a threat." The facility's alarms began blaring exactly 15 seconds later. "Dr. Morgan," General Richards said quietly, "I need to know what we're really dealing with here. Are these men still human?" Before Lex could answer, Rodriguez laughed. The sound sent shivers down her spine. "Human? We're what humanity was always meant to become." He raised his hand, and holographic displays sparked to life around him without any physical interaction. The Vraxians thought they were uplifting primitive species, but their technology was just a key. Human consciousness was the lock. "The neural web is spreading," Riley added, his form seeming to blur at the edges. "Every pilot we connect amplifies the field. Soon, we won't need the interface technology at all. We're becoming the interface." Lex stepped forward, finally voicing the theory she'd been developing. "The Vraxians didn't create this technology. They found it, just like we did. But their logical minds could only use it in logical ways. Human consciousness. Our emotions, our creativity, our chaos. It's transforming the technology into something new. Something even its original creators might not have imagined. And that's why they're afraid," Rodriguez said, his eyes seeing something far beyond the room's walls. "The main fleet, they're not coming to harvest us anymore. They're coming to eliminate us, because we've done something unprecedented in their history of uplift experiments." His smile was both beautiful and terrifying. "We've evolved beyond the parameters of their test." The room's lights flickered as Riley and Rodriguez's neural energy field expanded. In their minds, they could already see the massive Vraxian fleet approaching, not through any human technology, but through the same quantum network the aliens used for communication. "We have to make a choice now," Lex told Richards. "We can shut down the program, try to reverse the changes, or we can embrace this evolution, even if it means becoming something beyond human." "Different," Rodriguez corrected, purple light streaming from his eyes. "Not beyond. This is humanity unchained, General. The question is, are you ready to see what we can really do?" The facility shook as the first Vraxian bombs began falling from orbit. The sky above Nevada turned black with Vraxian fighters, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight like deadly prisms. Earth's conventional forces engaged them with everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the alien shields. In the underground bunker, Lex watched the battle through multiple feeds as Rodriguez and Riley prepared for launch. Their modified F-35s weren't just aircraft anymore. They'd evolved alongside their pilots, quantum circuitry growing through their structures like metallic veins. Neural synchronization at 200% capacity, Dr. Hayes announced, his voice trembling. They're exceeding all known biological limits. Because we're not just biological anymore, Rodriguez said, his body crackling with purple energy as he strapped in. The cockpit interfaces reached for him like living things, quantum tendrils merging with his transformed nervous system. Riley was already synchronized, his consciousness expanded through his aircraft systems. They're not just attacking bases, he reported, his voice carrying electronic harmonics. They're targeting anyone showing signs of neural evolution. The Vraxians want to stop what we're becoming. Then let's show them what they're really afraid of. Rodriguez grinned. Doc, initiate launch sequence. Lex hesitated. The latest scans showed the pilot's DNA actively rewriting itself. Every moment they stayed connected to the interface accelerated their transformation. You understand there's no going back after this. The changes will be permanent. Humanity's already crossed that line, Riley said. We're just the first through the breach. The launch doors opened above them, revealing the chaos of battle. Rodriguez and Riley's fighters rose on columns of quantum fire, their engines operating on principles that defied conventional physics. Multiple bogies, closing fast. Ground control announced. Counting 30. No, 50 Vraxian fighters on intercept course. But Rodriguez and Riley weren't listening to radio chatter anymore. They'd ascended into a state of consciousness where human language seemed primitive. Their minds expanded through the quantum network, feeling the electromagnetic pulses of enemy ships, tasting their attack patterns before they formed. The Vraxian fighters opened fire with crystalline energy weapons. Rodriguez's aircraft danced through the barrage like it was choreographed. Each movement predicted milliseconds before it needed to happen. Riley split his consciousness, controlling his fighter while simultaneously hacking into the aliens' targeting systems through pure thought. My God, General Richards whispered, watching the battle unfold. 2 human pilots were systematically dismantling an entire alien attack force. But the Vraxians were adapting. Their hive mind consciousness shifted strategies, attempting to box in the evolved humans with overlapping fields of fire. A crystalline beam clipped Riley's wing, and for a moment, his neural pattern fluctuated. Riley's taking damage, Hayes shouted. Neural load approaching critical. No, Riley's voice echoed through the command center. Not damage. Connection. Through the breach in his fighter's hull, Riley's consciousness touched the Vraxian weapon's energy directly. His transformed mind began decoding its quantum structure, understanding its fundamental nature. The purple light flowing through his body intensified. Rodriguez, he called. They didn't build these weapons, they grew them. The crystalline technology, it's all connected to the same network as the neural interfaces. Rodriguez understood instantly. Both pilots pushed their consciousness through the quantum web, not just evading the Vraxian weapons, but reaching into their core programming. The alien energy beams began to shift color, purple light mixing with their natural crystalline hues. Impossible. The first ever transmission from the Vraxian hive mind echoed through Earth's communications. The test subjects cannot access the Creator's network. You are not ready. That's where you're wrong, Rodriguez replied, his voice carrying through the quantum field itself. We're not just accessing it. We're changing it. Evolution isn't about being ready. It's about becoming ready. The sky erupted with purple fire as humanity's first evolved warriors showed the Vraxians exactly what human consciousness, unchained from its biological limits, could really do. The Vraxian mothership emerged from hyperspace like a crystalline mountain, its massive form blotting out the sun over Earth's northern hemisphere. Lex watched from the emergency command center as purple-tinged lightning crackled around Rodriguez and Riley's transformed bodies. They no longer needed their aircraft. Their evolved consciousness could directly interface with any technology they touched. The Creator's network spans galaxies, Riley said, his voice resonating with alien harmonics. The Vraxians are just one of many species they uplifted. But none have ever done what we did. None have ever changed the network itself. That's why they're here in force. Lex realized, studying the quantum readings from the mothership. This isn't about conquest. It's about containment. Too late for that. Rodriguez grinned, purple energy flowing from his eyes. Doc, remember when you said human consciousness was too chaotic for their systems? You were half right. We're not too chaotic. We're exactly chaotic enough. The mothership's primary weapon began charging, crystalline energy cascading through its massive frame. According to their calculations, it had enough power to crack Earth's crust. All forces fall back to secondary positions. General Richards ordered. We can't let that weaken. No, Lex interrupted, understanding flooding her mind. Everyone holds position. Rodriguez, Riley, show them what human chaos really means. The two evolved humans nodded in perfect synchronization. Their consciousness expanded through the quantum network, reaching toward the mothership. The Vraxian hive mind fought back, trying to block their access with logic gates and crystalline firewalls. But human minds didn't work on pure logic. Where the Vraxians thought in straight lines, humans thought in spirals. Where they built walls, humanity found spaces between spaces. The neural interface technology hadn't just given humans access to alien systems, it had given alien systems access to human creativity. Their entire network, Rodriguez called out, his form beginning to blur as he pushed deeper into the quantum field. It's based on crystalline structures. Perfect order. Perfect symmetry. Perfect weakness. Riley finished. Because the one thing crystals can't handle is resonance, Lex whispered, understanding their plan. You're going to introduce chaos into their ordered system. The two evolved humans reached out, not with weapons or technology, but with the fundamental nature of human consciousness. Dreams, emotions, impossible ideas, quantum uncertainties. The mothership's perfect crystalline structure began to sing with discordant harmonies. What are you doing? The Vraxian hive mind's panic echoed through the quantum network. This is not an authorized use of the Creator's gift. That's humanity's gift to the universe, Rodriguez replied, his voice carrying through space itself. We don't just think outside the box. We reimagine what boxes can be. Reality itself seemed to bend as human chaos met alien order. The mothership's weapon, designed to channel perfect crystalline energy, suddenly had to contend with human imagination. Purple light raced through its structure like cracks in reality. The creators meant this technology to guide evolution along ordered paths. The hive mind protested. Your species cannot be allowed to. To what? Riley's consciousness expanded further, touching every crystal in the massive ship. To evolve in ways you didn't expect. To change the very nature of the network. That's what humans do. We don't follow paths. We forge them. The mothership's weapon overloaded, but not in an explosion. Instead, its energy inverted, turned inward by human creativity working through alien physics. The perfect crystalline structure began to transform, purple light replacing its cold geometric patterns. My God, General Richards breathed, watching the sensors. They're not destroying it. They're evolving it. Lex finished. Just like the interface evolved us. The Vraxians thought they were testing us, but we're all part of something bigger. The creators didn't make this technology to uplift species. They made it to find ones capable of changing it, of making it into something new. The mothership pulsed with purple light, its crystalline structure now humming with human chaos. And through the quantum network, Lex could feel the ripples of change spreading, touching every piece of creator technology in the galaxy. Evolution, it seemed, had just gone viral. 1 month after the Battle of Earth, Lex stood in the transformed command center, watching purple light dance across every surface. The Vraxian mothership, now a hybrid of crystalline technology and human consciousness, hung in orbit like a new moon, its structure continuously evolving as it integrated more of humanity's chaotic nature. The network has reached the galactic core, Riley reported, his form now more energy than matter. Where once there had been a human pilot, there was now a being of pure quantum potential, holding human shape more out of habit than necessity. Other uplifted species are beginning to change. They're learning to dream. Rodriguez materialized beside them, his presence rippling through multiple dimensions. The Vraxian hive mind has fractured into individuals. They're experiencing emotions for the first time. Some are terrified. Others, he smiled, purple light streaming from his eyes. Others are exhilarated. And the creators? Lex asked, though she already knew the answer. The quantum network had revealed that truth weeks ago. Gone, Riley confirmed. They seeded the galaxy with their technology and vanished. Maybe they evolved beyond our understanding, or maybe they were looking for species that could do what they couldn't, break the boundaries between ordered technology and chaotic consciousness. General Richards entered, one of the few traditional humans still working directly with the evolved. The neural interface technology had been made available to all of humanity, but not everyone chose to change. That too was part of human nature: diversity, choice, the freedom to remain or transform. The Chinese have reported their first successful quantum city, Richards announced. Buildings that think, streets that dream, infrastructure that evolves to meet needs before they arise. The entire human race is entering a renaissance of consciousness. Not just humans anymore, Rodriguez corrected, gesturing to the quantum displays. Throughout the galaxy, species that had been uplifted by the Creator's technology were beginning to change. The rigid crystalline patterns were shifting, incorporating chaos, learning to imagine. We didn't just evolve ourselves, we introduced evolution itself into the network. Lex touched one of the crystalline walls, feeling the thoughts and dreams flowing through it. The boundary between technology and consciousness had dissolved. Humanity hadn't just upgraded their weapons, they'd upgraded reality itself. The Vraxians thought they were testing us, she mused. They never realized they were part of the test too. The Creator's technology wasn't meant to guide evolution along predetermined paths. It was meant to find species capable of breaking those paths, of introducing true change into the universe. Speaking of change, Riley's quantum form pulsed with new information. We're detecting signals from outside the galaxy. Other networks, other technologies, other types of consciousness. The universe is bigger and stranger than even the creators knew. Are we ready for that? Richards asked, his human concern evident, to meet truly alien minds, to face the unknown. Rodriguez laughed, the sound rippling through multiple dimensions. Ready? General, that's what humanity does best. We don't wait to be ready. We dive in, we adapt, we imagine new possibilities. Our chaos isn't our weakness, it's our gift to the cosmos. Lex watched as purple energy continued to spread through Earth's systems, transforming technology into something that was neither fully machine nor fully conscious, but something gloriously in between. Humanity had found its place in the universe, not as conquerors or subjects, but as catalysts of change. The Vraxians wanted to test our worthiness to join their galactic community, she said, smiling as new quantum possibilities bloomed in her mind. Instead, we showed them, showed everyone, that worthiness isn't about following established paths. It's about having the courage to forge new ones. Above them, the hybrid mothership pulsed with purple light, sending waves of human chaos streaming through the quantum network, touching distant stars and ancient technologies. Throughout the galaxy, rigid crystals began to dream, ordered minds began to imagine, and evolution itself evolved. Humanity's greatest weapon, it turned out, wasn't the alien technology they'd salvage. It was their ability to transform it into something that had never existed before, a bridge between order and chaos, between thought and reality, between what was and what could be. The universe would never be the same, and that, after all, was the most human thing of all.